The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Jin of the Viridian Empire stepped forward, her crystalline skin shimmering under the cold light of 1,000 watching worlds. Her decision would either save billions or condemn her people to extinction. "I accept the terms," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I will marry the human." Across the chamber, Mace stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. He was shorter than most species present, his skin a plain tan that seemed almost dull compared to the iridescent scales and bioluminescent patterns of the assembled delegates. Yet something in his dark eyes made Jin's breath catch a depth that seemed to contain entire universes. The marriage was a political necessity, a bridge between two powers on the brink of annihilation. The Viridian Empire had encroached on what humans claimed as their territory, and the subsequent skirmishes had escalated rapidly. Too rapidly. The humans had revealed weapons that shouldn't exist, strategies that defied conventional warfare, and a ruthlessness that terrified the Council. That was when Jin learned the truth that had been hidden from most of the galaxy. Humans were a forbidden species, quarantined to their small corner of space for reasons the Council refused to disclose. The marriage was meant to bind the two species, to create a peace that couldn't be broken without cosmic consequences. The ceremony was brief, cold, and transactional. Jin barely felt Mace's hand as they exchanged the ritual tokens. She wondered what kind of monster she had just bound herself to. The first month aboard the diplomatic vessel was torture. Jin kept to her quarters, reviewing files on human history that the Council had finally unsealed for her. What she read chilled her to her core. Humans came from a death worlder, planet so hostile that survival itself was an act of warfare. They had predators with venom that could kill in seconds, weather patterns that could devastate continents, and diseases that mutated faster than they could be cured. Yet humans had not just survived, they had thrived. But that wasn't why they were forbidden. She read about their wars, conflicts so brutal, so total, that they had nearly destroyed themselves dozens of times. They had split atoms to create weapons of apocalyptic power. They had engineered viruses as tools of extermination. They had looked into the abyss of their own extinction and chosen to dance along its edge. And still, that wasn't the full truth. Jin was reading a file on human neural architecture when Mace knocked on her door. She had been avoiding him, but politeness and curiosity made her answer. "May I come in?" he asked. She gestured silently, and he entered, carrying 2 cups of something that steamed gently. He offered her one. "Tea," he explained. "From Earth, I thought you might like it." Jin took the cup cautiously, scanning it with her implant. No toxins, no drugs. Just plant matter and hot water. She took a sip, surprised by the complex flavor. "You've been reading about us," Mace said, settling into a chair across from her. "It wasn't a question." "I have," Jin admitted, "trying to understand what I've married into, and—" "Are we the monsters you expected?" Jin studied him. In the soft light of her quarters, he looked almost gentle, but she had read the files. She knew what humans were capable of. "I don't know what you are," she said honestly. Mace smiled, but it was a sad expression. "We're survivors, Ambassador. That's all we've ever been." Over the following weeks, Jin found herself drawn into conversations with Mace that lasted long into the ship's night cycle. He spoke of Earth with a passion that surprised Hertz's blue oceans, its green forests, its impossible diversity of life. He shared music that made her weep without understanding why, and poetry that seemed to capture emotions she didn't have words for. But he also told her the darker truths. About the wars, yes, but also about the peace. About how humans had looked at their capacity for destruction and chosen, again and again, to step back from the brink. About how they had learned to channel their aggression into art, their violence into protection, their tribalism into community. "We're not perfect," Mace said one night, as they stood on the observation deck watching stars streak by. "We're probably never going to be, but we try. That's what makes us human, we keep trying." Jin was beginning to understand why humans were forbidden. It wasn't because they were too violent or too dangerous, though they were both. It was because they were too adaptable, too resilient, too impossibly stubborn to accept limitations. They were a species that had stared at the impossible and shrugged. The revelation came during a council meeting 3 months into the marriage. A crisis had emerged, a plague world that needed evacuation. But the rescue would require entering a radioactive nebula that was lethal to most known species. "It's impossible," the Viridian Chancellor declared. "No ship can survive those conditions." "A human ship could," Mace said quietly. The council turned to him, and Jin saw fear flash across their faces. "Explain," the council prime demanded. Mace stood, and suddenly he seemed taller, more commanding. "Humans don't accept impossible. We've survived impossible. Our entire existence is built on finding solutions where none should exist. You want to know why we're forbidden? It's not because we're dangerous, it's because we make you confront your own limitations." He turned to the holographic display, pulling up. "We can save those people. Our ships are built to endure what would kill yours. Our crews are trained to survive conditions you've never had to imagine. And we'll do it because that's what we do. We save people, even when it's impossible." The silence that followed was deafening. Jyn stood, her decision crystallizing. "Then we go together, Viridian and human, as the alliance was meant to be." She looked at Mace, truly seeing him for the first time. Not as a monster or a weapon, but as what he had claimed to be, a survivor who had chosen to be a protector. Together, Mace agreed, extending his hand. Jin took it, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. And in that moment, she understood. Humans weren't forbidden because they were dangerous. They were forbidden because they were hope incarnate, a species that refused to accept any darkness as permanent, and that, more than any weapon, was what truly terrified the galaxy.